Ryan was a single dad and a veteran. Life after the army had been harder than he expected. Every day was a careful balancing act between working extra hours at the garage and making sure his 8-year-old son, Ben, had everything he needed. Their small apartment was crowded, noisy, and often too expensive for what it offered. Bills arrived faster than Ryan could pay them, and every month he felt the pressure growing. One quiet afternoon, while Ben was drawing at the kitchen table, Ryan's phone rang. It was a number he did not recognize. Curious, he answered. A calm voice on the other side told him that he had inherited a property from his late uncle, a man Ryan barely remembered from childhood. The letter explained that the property was an old store, abandoned for many years and now legally belonged to Ryan. Ryan stared at the letter. "Is this really all we get?" he said aloud, looking at Ben, who tilted his head, curious. The boy had always admired his father's quiet strength, even when life seemed unfair. Ryan shrugged. "Maybe it is a start," he said, though he felt unsure. The next morning, Ryan and Ben drove to the address. The street was quiet, lined with trees that swayed gently in the wind. The store appeared at the end of the road. Its paint was faded, windows were covered with grime, and the sign above the door was barely readable. A small bell hung crookedly above the entrance, silent for years. Ryan parked the car and took a deep breath. The door creaked loudly as he pushed it open. Dust swirled in the sunlight that slipped through the dirty windows. The store smelled old, a mix of wood, age, and forgotten stories. Shelves lined the walls, most empty, some holding boxes with broken items or old papers. Ben stepped carefully, his small hands brushing against the dusty shelves. "Dad, it looks like a treasure house," he said with excitement. Ryan smiled, trying to feel the same excitement, though his mind raced with practical thoughts, repairs, costs, and the possibility that the store might be worthless. Ryan began to explore. He moved old furniture, lifting boxes carefully. In the back of the store, under a stack of crates, he noticed a small trapdoor. Curious, he knelt down and pulled it open. Beneath it was a shallow drawer, locked but surprisingly intact. He remembered a small key attached to a ring he found on the counter. The lock clicked open easily. Inside, there were papers neatly stacked, unlike the dusty chaos around them. Ryan frowned, scanning the first few pages. They were old ledgers filled with numbers, account details, and notes that looked confusing at first. "These are not normal bills," he said, flipping through the pages carefully. Ben peeked over his father's shoulder. "Are these like a treasure map?" he asked, eyes wide with hope. Ryan chuckled softly. "Something like that," he said, though he did not fully understand it yet. As he continued reading, patterns began to emerge. The ledgers recorded large sums of money, transactions between names he did not recognize, and mentions of a hidden storage in the building. His heart beat faster. Could it be possible that the abandoned store was hiding something valuable? He had never imagined that an old, forgotten place could be more than just empty shelves and dust. Ben ran to a corner and began picking up small objects, pretending to find coins and jewels. Ryan shook his head, smiling at his son's imagination. At the same time, his mind was racing with questions. Who had left these ledgers? Why had no one claimed the money? And most importantly, what did this mean for them? For the first time in a long while, Ryan felt a spark of hope. Life had been hard, but maybe this inheritance was not just an old store. Maybe it was a chance to change everything, to give Ben a better future and to start a new chapter in their lives. He closed the drawer carefully, looking around the dusty room, and whispered to himself, "This is just the beginning." The next morning, Ryan woke early. His mind was restless. He could not stop thinking about the ledgers he had found in the abandoned store. Something about them felt important, as if they were hiding a secret that had been forgotten for years. Ben yawned beside him, still sleepy but curious. "Dad, can we go back to the store?" he asked. Ryan smiled, feeling the same excitement mixed with worry. "Yes, Ben, today we explore more," he said. They drove through the quiet streets until they reached the old store. The sunlight caught the dusty windows, making the place look almost magical. Ryan unlocked the door and stepped inside, Ben following closely. He moved carefully around the shelves, trying to remember where the hidden drawer had been. He pulled it open and looked at the ledgers again. The numbers were confusing, but one thing was clear. The records were detailed, noting deposits, withdrawals, and names repeated over and over. Ryan noticed that many entries mentioned a location in the back of the store. a place he had not yet explored. Curiosity pushed him forward. He moved a large shelf aside and discovered a small, hidden door behind it. The door was dusty and had a faint rust on the hinges, but it was unlocked. Ryan looked at Ben. "Stay close," he said. Together, they opened the door. It led to a narrow corridor with walls lined with old boxes. The air smelled older than the rest of the store, like secrets had been sleeping here for decades. Ryan's heart beat faster. Each step echoed, making the small space feel larger than it was. At the end of the corridor, he found a metal safe built into the wall. It was surprisingly sturdy with a combination lock. Ryan knelt down and examined it, thinking about the ledgers. Perhaps the numbers were the key to opening it. He tried a few simple combinations based on dates he found in the ledgers, and with a soft click, the safe opened. Inside, Ryan froze. The safe was filled with stacks of old documents, sealed envelopes, and bundles of papers tied with ribbons. He lifted a bundle and noticed that each envelope had a name on it. Some were familiar names, but many were unknown. The papers were financial records, contracts, and receipts, proof of something much bigger than an ordinary store. Ryan realized that his uncle had been keeping a secret for a long time. Ben's eyes grew wide. "Dad, is this treasure?" he whispered. Ryan smiled, feeling the weight of what they had found. It was not treasure in the way pirates had gold, but it was far more valuable. The documents hinted at wealth, investments, and accounts that no one knew about. Someone had hidden billions in legal ways, and now the store was their secret guardian. Ryan spent the rest of the day sorting through the papers. Each folder revealed more details. There were mentions of overseas accounts, rare collectibles, and even properties that had been quietly bought and left alone. His mind raced as he connected the dots. The abandoned store was not just a building. It was a key to something extraordinary, and it had chosen him as the new guardian. Ben wandered around, finding old coins and toys in some of the boxes. He was happy and excited, but Ryan kept his focus on the ledgers and documents. He felt a mix of responsibility and excitement. This was a chance to change their lives, but he knew it would not be simple. Someone might have been keeping these secrets for decades, and there might be others who would want to find them. As the sun began to set, Ryan carefully placed the documents back in the safe. He looked at Ben and smiled. "We will figure this out together," he said. Ben nodded, feeling proud of his father. For the first time in years, Ryan felt hope. Life had been difficult, but now, a new journey had begun, one filled with mystery, discovery, and the promise of something greater than they had ever imagined. That night, as they drove home, Ryan thought about the future. The store was more than just inherited property. It was a doorway to a hidden world, a place where secrets had waited patiently for the right person to find them. Ryan knew that tomorrow they would return. There was too much to uncover to wait. The next morning, Ryan could hardly sleep. His mind kept returning to the safe, the ledgers, and the hidden documents he had discovered. Something about the store was more than just money. It was a puzzle, a story waiting to be uncovered. He had served in the army, faced danger, and solved problems under pressure, but this mystery felt different. It required patience, intelligence, and careful planning. Ben bounded into the kitchen, full of energy. "Dad, can we go to the store today? I want to see if we find more treasures." Ryan laughed, brushing his hand over his tired face. "Yes, Ben, but today we need to be careful. There is more to discover than just toys or coins." They arrived at the store, and Ryan locked the main door behind them. The morning sun illuminated the dusty shelves, making them look almost golden. He moved the crate aside to reach the hidden corridor again. Ben followed, holding Ryan's hand tightly, excitement shining in his eyes. Ryan knelt by the safe, studying the papers once more. He noticed something he had missed before. Many of the ledgers contained codes and sequences, numbers arranged in a way that suggested patterns. Some entries referenced the safe. Others mentioned properties and accounts with no addresses. Ryan realized that his uncle had hidden information in plain sight. Each number, each note was part of a larger puzzle. "This is like a secret map," Ryan said quietly. "We have to understand it carefully." Ben nodded, pretending to take notes on a scrap of paper. Ryan spent hours going through each page, writing down connections and trying different sequences on the safe. He had learned discipline and patience in the army, and now he relied on those skills more than ever. By midday, Ryan felt closer to understanding the secret. He discovered references to a second safe hidden somewhere in the store. This one, he realized, might hold the real treasure. The papers described it vaguely. Behind what is seen, below what is common, the key waits. Ryan scratched his head, thinking about what that could mean. Ben wandered around the room, examining boxes and shelves. Maybe it's under the floorboards, he suggested innocently. Ryan smiled, realizing the boy might be right. They began checking the floor carefully. The boards were old but solid. Ryan tapped lightly, listening for hollow spaces. After several minutes, he heard a faint echo near the back wall. He knelt down, pressing on the boards, and discovered a small panel that lifted easily. Inside was another metal box, smaller than the first safe but heavier. It was locked with a combination as well. Ryan remembered the sequences in the ledgers and tried several possible combinations. On the third attempt, the lock clicked open. Inside, they found envelopes stacked neatly. Each envelope had a label: investments, properties, rare items, and accounts in banks Ryan had never heard of. He could hardly believe his eyes. The documents suggested hidden wealth worth millions, carefully managed by his uncle. Ben's eyes widened. "Dad, this is amazing." "We found it." Ryan smiled, feeling both excitement and responsibility. He carefully lifted the envelopes, placing them in a secure bag. He knew this was more than just money. It was a chance to build a future for Ben, a way to give him opportunities Ryan had never had. While sorting through the documents, Ryan noticed a handwritten note tucked among the envelopes. It read, "The true value is not in the gold, but in the care taken to protect it. Only those with patience and honesty can unlock the full secret." Ryan paused, reflecting on the words. His uncle had trusted him to be careful and responsible. The note felt like a challenge and a lesson. They spent the rest of the afternoon organizing the papers and planning their next steps. Ryan knew they could not rush. There were decisions to make, and he had to ensure everything remained safe. Ben played nearby, happy and excited, imagining adventures and treasure hunts, but Ryan remained focused on the task. As the sun began to set, Ryan looked around the store with a new perspective. It was more than a building. It was a place of discovery, of secrets waiting to be revealed by someone willing to pay attention. For the first time in years, Ryan felt hope, purpose, and determination. He was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that this store and the hidden wealth could change their lives forever. The next morning, Ryan woke early, filled with determination. The documents and envelopes they had found the day before were still fresh in his mind. He knew that finding the second safe had only uncovered part of the secret. There was more to learn, more to explore, and he had to be patient. Ben, excited as ever, had already eaten breakfast and was waiting by the door. "Are we going back to the store, Dad?" Ben asked eagerly. Ryan smiled, feeling the boy's energy lift his spirits. "Yes, today we plan." "We have to be smart about this," he replied. Ben nodded and grabbed his small backpack, pretending it was filled with treasure hunting tools. When they arrived at the store, Ryan locked the door behind them and led Ben to the hidden corridor in the back. The sunlight from the dusty windows made the room glow warmly, highlighting the shelves and old boxes. Ryan carefully carried the bag of envelopes and documents to a small table in the center of the room. He spread them out, trying to organize the information. Each envelope contained records of investments, property ownership, and other financial matters. Some were simple, but others were complex with handwritten notes and codes. Ryan realized that he needed a plan to understand everything. He began making lists, categorizing the documents and cross-referencing numbers with addresses and names. "This is bigger than I thought," Ryan said quietly. Ben peeked over his father's shoulder. "Bigger than what?" he asked. Ryan smiled at the boy. "Bigger than a normal treasure, Ben. This is like a secret empire hidden in plain sight." Ryan noticed that some of the envelopes contained instructions from his uncle. They described certain properties and accounts, along with warnings about keeping them secure. His uncle had been careful, protecting wealth that could vanish if it fell into the wrong hands. Ryan realized that part of the challenge was learning to think like his uncle, to understand the methods and logic behind each decision. Ben wandered around, picking up small toys and pretending they were part of the treasure. Ryan watched him for a moment, feeling proud. He knew that this store, with all its secrets, was also a chance to give Ben hope and excitement. It was a place where they could work together, solve puzzles, and dream about the future. Ryan decided that their first step would be to secure the documents safely. He returned them to the second safe, double-checking the lock and making sure nothing was out of place. Then he began to plan how to explore the rest of the building. According to the codes in the ledgers, there were hidden compartments and small rooms that had not yet been opened. He traced the notes carefully, trying to imagine where each clue might lead. Hours passed and Ryan felt a growing sense of purpose. He was no longer just a man trying to survive. He was a detective, an explorer, and a guardian of a secret legacy. He taught Ben to pay attention to details, to think carefully, and to be patient. Ben listened intently, happy to learn from his father. As the afternoon sunlight faded, Ryan took a step back and looked at the store. Every corner, every shelf, and every dusty box suddenly seemed full of potential. He realized that the journey ahead would take time, effort, and intelligence. There would be challenges, but he felt ready. For the first time in years, he felt in control of his life and hopeful for the future. Before leaving for the day, Ryan made a final note in his notebook. He listed the rooms to explore, the documents to study, and the codes that still needed solving. Ben gathered his little toys and ran to the door, excited to return tomorrow. As they walked to the car, Ryan smiled at the boy. "Tomorrow we continue our adventure," he said. Ben nodded eagerly, holding his father's hand. Ryan looked back at the store, feeling a sense of pride and anticipation. This abandoned building was more than just a place. It was a beginning, a hidden world waiting to reveal its secrets to those willing to discover them. That night, Ryan lay in bed thinking about the future. He knew that patience, intelligence, and honesty were keys to unlocking the full fortune. He felt a sense of responsibility, but also excitement. Life had given him a second chance, a chance to build something extraordinary for him and Ben, and he was ready to take it. The next morning, Ryan woke with a sense of excitement. He had spent days studying the documents and ledgers from the hidden safe, and now he felt ready to explore the store more carefully. Ben was already up, bouncing with energy. "Dad, are we going to find more secrets today?" he asked. Ryan smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "Yes, Ben, but we need to be smart and careful." They drove to the old store, the sun shining brightly over the dusty windows. Ryan unlocked the door and held it open for Ben. Inside, the room smelled of old wood and paper. Dust danced in the sunlight, making the air look almost magical. Ryan led Ben to the back corridor, where the hidden rooms and compartments had yet to be explored. Ryan carefully examined the floor, tracing the codes from the ledgers. One sequence led him to a section of the floor that sounded hollow when he tapped it. He knelt down and pressed on the boards. With a quiet creak, a small panel lifted, revealing a narrow stairway descending into darkness. He looked at Ben, who gripped his hand tightly but did not show fear. "Ready?" Ryan asked. Ben nodded, eyes wide with excitement. Together they stepped down into the hidden basement. The air was cool and smelled faintly of old wood and metal. The walls were lined with shelves, boxes, and crates, all labeled in neat handwriting. Ryan's heart beat faster. This was clearly another secret his uncle had left for someone to find. Ryan began examining the boxes. Many contained rare items, old coins, antique tools, and collectibles that were worth far more than their appearance suggested. Some boxes contained papers similar to those in the safe but older, with handwriting that looked decades old. Ryan realized that his uncle had carefully stored these items to protect them, and to keep their value hidden from anyone who might misuse them. Ben wandered among the shelves, picking up small trinkets. "Look, Dad, a shiny coin," he said, holding it up proudly. Ryan smiled, feeling happiness in the small moments with his son. "Yes, Ben, but remember, these are part of the secret," he replied gently. "We have to be careful and respectful of what we find." Hours passed as Ryan sorted through the items. He discovered notes that explained the history of the store, the investments, and the hidden treasures. Each note added to the puzzle, connecting numbers, names, and locations. He realized that his uncle had left not just wealth, but a map of careful planning that would allow someone trustworthy to unlock it completely. Ryan also found a small chest with a combination lock. Unlike the safes, this chest seemed personal, almost like a diary in its secrecy. He tried combinations suggested by the ledgers and, after several careful attempts, it clicked open. Inside were letters addressed to him, written by his uncle before he passed. The letters were filled with advice, warnings, and encouragement. His uncle had trusted Ryan to be responsible, honest, and patient, and he wanted Ryan to understand the value of care and dedication. Ben peered over his father's shoulder, curious but quiet. "Dad, what do the letters say?" Ryan smiled, reading aloud a few sentences. His uncle wrote about life, responsibility, and the importance of protecting what was valuable. "He wanted me to learn, Ben," Ryan said softly. "Not just about money, but about patience and making good choices." By evening, Ryan had organized the basement, labeling boxes and making notes in his own notebook. He looked at Ben and smiled. "We found a lot today, but this is just the beginning. There is still more to discover and understand." Ben nodded eagerly, proud of their teamwork. As they left the store, Ryan felt a sense of accomplishment. The hidden basement, the letters, and the treasures had given him hope and a new sense of purpose. For the first time in years, he felt confident that he could build a better future for Ben. The abandoned store was no longer just a building. It was a place of opportunity, learning, and adventure. That night, Ryan lay in bed thinking about the letters, the codes, and the treasures. He understood that uncovering the full secret would take time, patience, and intelligence. But he felt ready. Life had given him a second chance, and he would not waste it. With Ben by his side, Ryan knew they could face any challenge and unlock the hidden fortune that awaited them. The next morning, Ryan woke feeling determined. The discoveries in the basement had filled him with hope, but he knew the real challenge was just beginning. The hidden documents and letters had shown him that his uncle's fortune was protected carefully. To access it fully, he would need more than curiosity. He would need planning, patience, and knowledge. Ben was already up, bouncing with excitement. "Dad, are we going to the store today?" he asked. Ryan smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "Yes, Ben, but today we need to think carefully. There are rules and steps we must follow to do this safely." Ben nodded, listening carefully. He loved being part of the adventure, but trusted his father completely. At the store, Ryan unpacked the envelopes from the safe and spread them across the table. Each one contained information about investments, properties, and accounts in different places. He realized that some of the assets were accessible through banks, others through legal documents, and some required proof of ownership that only his uncle had prepared. Ryan understood that unlocking the fortune would take time and careful effort. He decided to start with the simplest step, identifying the accounts and understanding what each envelope contained. The documents mentioned several local banks and trustees along with specific instructions. Ryan made a list of each item, carefully noting codes, dates, and references. This task required focus, and he reminded himself to be patient. Ben wandered among the shelves, pretending to be a detective searching for clues. He found small trinkets and coins, which he showed proudly to his father. Ryan smiled. "Yes, Ben, those are interesting, but remember, the important treasures are in the documents," he said. Ben nodded, enjoying both the game and his father's teaching. Ryan spent hours going through the documents, comparing numbers and references. He discovered patterns that revealed how his uncle had organized everything. Some envelopes referred to properties that had been rented quietly, generating income for years. Others contained stocks and investments that had grown steadily. Ryan realized that his uncle had not only hidden wealth but also protected it from anyone who might misuse it. By afternoon, Ryan felt confident about the next step. He planned to visit one of the local banks mentioned in the documents. He wanted to understand what proof he needed to access the accounts and how to move forward legally. He also noted that some investments required consulting a lawyer, someone who could guide him carefully without risking mistakes. Ben asked, "Dad, will we really get all the money?" Ryan smiled and shook his head. "It is not about the money, Ben. It is about learning responsibility, patience, and making good choices. The money is just part of it. The important thing is to do this the right way." Ben nodded, feeling proud of his father's careful words. Before leaving the store, Ryan double-checked the safes and hidden compartments. He wanted to make sure everything remained secure. He also organized his notes, making it easier to understand the next steps. Each detail mattered. One small mistake could slow them down or create problems. Ryan felt the weight of responsibility, but it made him even more determined. On the drive home, Ryan thought about the journey so far. The store, the hidden rooms, and the documents had already taught him patience, attention to detail, and planning. He realized that these lessons were more valuable than the wealth itself. He looked at Ben, who was quietly drawing in his notebook, and smiled. Together they could face the challenges ahead. That evening, Ryan made a plan. He would visit the local bank first, then consult a lawyer, and gradually work through the steps to access the fortune safely. He knew it would take time, but he felt ready. For the first time in years, Ryan believed that he could create a better life for himself and Ben, using the lessons his uncle had left behind and the treasures they had discovered. As Ryan went to bed, he felt a quiet sense of hope. The journey was not over, but they were moving in the right direction. The abandoned store had become more than a building. It was a doorway to a future filled with opportunity, discovery, and a chance to build something extraordinary. The next morning, Ryan felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Today was the day he planned to take the first real step toward accessing his uncle's hidden fortune. He had spent days studying the documents, organizing the envelopes, and making notes. Now he needed to act carefully, making sure every step was correct. Ben watched him closely, sensing the importance of the day. They arrived at the store early, sunlight streaming through the dusty windows. Ryan unlocked the door and led Ben to the back corridor. The hidden basement and the safes were waiting, silent but full of potential. Ryan carried the envelopes with him, knowing that the first task was to verify the accounts at the local bank. He had prepared copies of all the documents, letters from his uncle, and notes about the codes and investments. Ryan and Ben drove to the bank. The building was tall and modern, a contrast to the old store. Inside, Ryan met a bank officer who listened carefully as he explained the situation. He showed the letters, documents, and records of ownership. The officer nodded slowly, impressed with Ryan's preparation. "This is unusual," the officer said, "but everything seems in order. You have the proper documents to begin accessing the accounts." Ryan felt a wave of relief. This was the first step toward unlocking the hidden wealth. He worked with the officer to understand each account, making notes and asking questions. Some of the funds were investments, others were savings, and a few were set up as trusts. Ryan realized that managing the fortune would require patience, knowledge, and careful planning. Meanwhile, Ben sat quietly, watching his father with admiration. He felt proud of Ryan and curious about the wealth, though he understood that the most important lesson was responsibility. "Dad, are we really doing it?" he asked softly. Ryan smiled. "Yes, Ben, but it is not just about money. It is about learning how to do the right thing." After finishing at the bank, Ryan decided to visit a lawyer who specialized in trusts and estates. He wanted to make sure every step he took was legal and safe. The lawyer examined the documents carefully, confirming that Ryan was the rightful heir and that the accounts and properties could be managed responsibly. He also gave advice on handling the investments and protecting the wealth. Ryan listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions. By the afternoon, Ryan and Ben returned to the store. Ryan felt a sense of achievement. The first steps were complete, and the fortune was now within reach, though it required careful attention. He opened the second safe and reviewed the envelopes again, making plans to follow the instructions one by one. The hidden basement, the letters, and the documents had all led to this moment. Ben explored nearby shelves, finding small objects that seemed like treasures from a storybook. Ryan smiled, realizing how the adventure had brought them closer together. "Ben, one day you will understand everything we found here," he said. "But for now, let us enjoy learning and discovering." Ben nodded, excited for the future. As the sun began to set, Ryan walked through the store, imagining how it could be used. He thought about organizing the treasures, managing the accounts, and protecting everything for the future. He also realized that this was a chance to teach Ben about responsibility, planning, and patience. The abandoned store had become more than a building. It was a place of learning, discovery, and opportunity. That evening, Ryan made a plan for the next steps. He would gradually access the accounts, manage the investments, and secure the properties. He would also continue exploring the hidden rooms and documents in the store, making sure nothing was overlooked. With Ben by his side, he felt confident that they could face any challenge and unlock the full secret of the fortune. As Ryan lay in bed that night, he felt a quiet sense of pride. The journey had not been easy, but every challenge had taught him something important. He thought about the future, about Ben, and about the lessons his uncle had left behind. For the first time in years, Ryan felt hope, purpose, and excitement. The abandoned store had revealed its secret slowly, and now their adventure was truly beginning. The following morning, Ryan woke with a sense of purpose. The first steps to access his uncle's fortune had been successful, but he knew the final discoveries were still ahead. The store, with all its hidden rooms, safes, and documents, had more to reveal. Ben was already dressed and ready, bouncing with excitement. "Dad, today we find the last secrets, right?" he asked. Ryan smiled. "Yes, Ben, but we have to be careful and thoughtful." They arrived at the old store, sunlight spilling through the dusty windows. Ryan unlocked the door, leading Ben to the hidden corridor at the back. Today he planned to explore the remaining rooms and boxes he had not yet opened. The hidden basement had already given them treasures, letters, and lessons, but Ryan felt that the final pieces of the puzzle were still waiting. Ryan moved carefully among the shelves, examining every crate and box. Many contained items he had already cataloged: old coins, rare collectibles, and envelopes with investment records. But there were a few small crates stacked in a corner that he had not yet touched. Their labels were faded, almost unreadable. He knelt down and opened the first one. Inside were notebooks, carefully preserved, filled with notes, numbers, and maps. Ryan's heart raced. These notebooks seemed to explain how the investments, properties, and accounts were connected. They also included instructions for managing them wisely. Every detail his uncle had recorded showed intelligence, care, and trust. Ryan realized that this final discovery would allow him to understand the fortune completely and ensure it was protected for the future. Ben leaned over, curious but quiet. "Dad, what's in there?" he asked softly. Ryan smiled and explained, "These notebooks are like a guide. They will help us understand everything your grandfather left behind. We need to read carefully and learn." Ben nodded, watching as his father carefully turned the pages and made notes. Hours passed as Ryan studied the notebooks. Each page revealed connections he had not noticed before. The documents explained how certain properties were generating income, how investments had grown, and how all accounts were linked securely. Ryan realized that his uncle had not only left wealth, but had also created a system to ensure it lasted for generations. As the day went on, Ryan began organizing the final envelopes and documents. He carefully placed the notebooks, letters, and ledgers in a secure order, making it easier to manage the fortune step by step. The hidden basement, the safes, and the letters now made sense as a complete system. Ryan felt a sense of accomplishment, knowing that he could honor his uncle's trust and continue the work responsibly. Ben wandered among the shelves, finding small objects that seemed magical. "Look, Dad, a shiny coin and a toy car," he exclaimed. Ryan laughed, appreciating the boy's imagination. "Yes, Ben, those are treasures too, but the biggest treasure is what we learned and discovered today," he said gently. Ben smiled, understanding in his own way that the adventure was more than wealth. It was knowledge, trust, and responsibility. By evening, Ryan and Ben had finished organizing the store. Every document, notebook, and box was in place. Ryan sat back feeling proud and fulfilled. He realized that the journey had taught him patience, planning, and trust. The abandoned store had transformed from a forgotten building into a place of hope, opportunity, and a new beginning for him and Ben. As they locked the store and walked home, Ryan felt a quiet sense of peace. The hidden fortune was no longer a mystery. It was a part of their lives, ready to be managed wisely. He thought about the future, a life where he could provide for Ben, teach him valuable lessons, and create opportunities that had never been possible before. That night, Ryan lay in bed thinking about the journey. From a small abandoned store to hidden safes, letters, and a secret fortune, every step had been a challenge, a lesson, and an adventure. He knew that the future held responsibility, but he felt ready. Ben was sleeping peacefully beside him, and Ryan understood that the greatest reward was not just wealth, but the trust, knowledge, and hope that his uncle had passed on. Ryan smiled, closing his eyes. The adventure had ended and a new chapter had begun. The abandoned store had given them more than money. It had given them a chance to dream, to plan, and to build a better life together. For the first time in years, Ryan felt truly hopeful about the future, ready to embrace it fully with Ben by his side.